This episode of FilmRiot is brought to you by FreshBooks.
My name is Ryan Booth, and I am the cinematographer on Ryan Connolly's U.F.Oh Yeah. And a couple of days ago, Ryan asked if I would come on FilmRiot and talk a little bit about cinematography. And he put out a call for questions on Twitter. I actually was on an airplane on the way to a project, and when I got off the airplane, I had quite literally hundreds of @replies on Twitter. So we're going to try and rip through a handful of the questions that came in. So thanks to Ryan for having me on, and let's get to the questions. The question is about basically how can you make your images look cinematic, and I would honestly say that that to make something feel cinematic is actually primarily about the lighting, and so what that usually means is more side lit than front lit. There's a lot of contrast between kind of your high key side and your fill side. It's a lot about kind of all your lighting ratios and the way that kind of the light is falling on your scene. That if you kind of focus mostly on that, then you'll find that your lenses, more or less look great. Of course, you can use very expensive, very awesome looking glass, but I just did an Under Armour commercial, and we ended up shooting a big chunk of it on a 24-70 Canon lens. So I think it's just one of those things that if you can focus primarily on the way that the image looks from a lighting standpoint, then the kind of cinematic feel will follow. That question is really fundamentally about what is a DP's job. And at the end of the day, it's the director's party. And the DP, your job is to help support the director's vision. So, I'm not shooting for my reel. I'm not shooting for trying to make the most amazing thing for myself. My job as a DP is to help execute the vision I've been brought on to execute. And in this case, in the case of U.F.Oh Yeah, I was there to help execute Ryan's vision for the project. And I will say, if you take a look at my reel, which is a lot of handheld work, it's a lot of kind of modified natural light, it's a lot of kind of fast-moving, very reactive camera operating, is very different than the look of U.F.Oh Yeah, which was entirely stabilized. Everything was very controlled, very precise movements, and that is different than my kind of quote-unquote most common style that I shoot, the style that I'm probably more drawn to. So if this was my project, and there was no director, if I was directing and DPing, then I probably would have shot it a lot differently. But I think that that's the fun part about being a DP, is that it isn't your project. And so you are freed up to try things that you wouldn't necessarily do. And to have I think what's great about working with Ryan is that he's a director with a very precise idea of what he wants to accomplish. And so it's my job to accomplish that in whatever capacity that I can. And so, I think a lot of times that doesn't necessarily just mean saying yes to whatever Ryan wants to do. It's kind of fully buying into the story and what we're trying to accomplish, and interpreting what he wants. When he says, I want this shot over here, I will ask questions about, why do you want the shot over here? What does that give us? What does that tell us? What does that accomplish for the story? And if that's and once I kind of am able to interpret that, and then the script and what Josh is doing and everything, I will absolutely make suggestions if I think there's a better way to accomplish that, achieve that same feeling. But there may be, if we move over here, if we do this, we may be able to combine these shots, and then we can do this over here, and that makes our lighting great this way, and then it still gets what you want, which is that certain feeling with that certain image. The two most essential pieces of lighting gear, and forgive me for being coy, is your eyeball and the sun. I think those are the two things that anybody can use right now to get really great lighting. For instance, in this interview, I know we're not breaking the record books with the most amazing lighting setup, but we've got a window and we've got a little bit of negative fill, and it looks cool to the eye. So that's all we needed to light this interview, for instance. And I think that a lot of times the way that the light is falling to your eye, the way that light looks on a face, the way that the light looks, on the edges of someone's body, I think it is like having an eye that can see those details is the most important thing that you can do. And secondarily, like the sun is an enormous HMI. It will, if you turn off the overhead, the first thing I do whenever I get to a location is turn all the lights off, and just see where the light is falling naturally. And I'll be able to start blocking from there, going, okay, well, the light's kind of coming in here and then bouncing around to this side. So even if I'm going to light it, I like a style of lighting that feels very natural, feels very motivated. So I'll see where the light's coming into the room and go, okay, even if we kill this so that the sun isn't coming through anymore, I'm going to light from this side because that's just, it feels right for the room. So I think the sun and your eye are the two most important things for you, and they're free. You can start doing that right this second. If you actually want to know what piece of lighting equipment I would use, I use KinoFlows, fluorescent tubes, the 4-foot kind of KinoFlows I use on pretty much everything. I love the look of that. And I love a good old-fashioned tungsten light with a dimmer. I just think you can do a lot with, tungsten and a dimmer. You can accomplish a ton, change the color temperature, change the intensity, change the way that it hits the face. I think Kinos and dimmed tungsten are my two kind of essential actual pieces of lighting gear. There is no such thing as a perfect director-DP relationship, because you've got two people who can't be inside each other's heads, so you're having to communicate your ideas to each other. Necessarily, some things will be lost in translation, or it'll be difficult to say exactly what you want, but I think that kind of everybody trusting each other and knowing that we're all moving towards the same goal, I think kind of keeping everyone on that same path forward is the kind of the base layer to having a really successful relationship between director and DP, and between the director and the rest of the crew. So I think that, and just having fun. This is not brain surgery. Nobody is going to die on the table as a result of the work that we're doing, and realizing that, like, even in a really stressful situation, it's a blast. Like, even in the middle of that 4 o'clock in the morning, you've been working all night, you had no sleep, and the Movi battery dies, or the generator won't turn on, or who knows what the problem is. Like, in the moment, it's still really, really fun. And I think as long as you can keep that mentality, then the rest is easy. It's interesting working with a DP kind of talking about camera movement or deciding about camera movement. It really just depends on the director that you're working with. There's some directors that I work with that don't do anything camera related. They don't have shots in mind. They don't have specific movement or style. They just like, here's some movies that I like, here's some images that I like, now like you go do your thing. And they're 100% focused on the story and really the performance of the actors. And then some directors are very specific. I've gotten boards from directors that, like, I'm just shooting the boards, meaning they've storyboarded the whole thing. This move is a push in, this move is a dolly left, this move is a jib up, and like I'm just there to execute that. And so with Ryan has this is the first time that Ryan has ever worked with a DP, and so he's come from a very hands-on, very specific kind of camera, actively shooting his projects and being involved in the actual kind of DP work. And so for this one, he had some very specific ideas about how he wanted to move the camera. And so, for instance, that opening shot, which is that long dolly move, was already planned out. That was up to me to light it and kind of execute the move and make some tweaks to make it feel right. But that was Ryan's idea for that. But then when we got to the Movi stuff, it was very much like all right, what do you think we should do, was how Ryan approached that. And so then based on the way that the camera had been moving and I knew it was going to move outside, then we made some decisions about how it was going to move inside the cabin once we got that up. So I think one thing that we talked about early on in the process was that it was a comedy, but we didn't want it to feel like a comedy. We didn't want it to look like a comedy. So we were going to shoot it like it was a drama. We were going to be very intentional with our camera moves and very shoot it with a lot of contrast and a lot of drama, and then let that, let the joke come out of nowhere, basically. And so that was an intentional decision from the beginning. This film is very different than my kind of normal style of shooting. So the kind of Spielberg look was very intentional and very set out by Ryan from the beginning. And so that just means kind of, I think there was one reference image, I think it was from Close Encounters, where they're all sitting in a pickup truck and they're kind of hit overhead from a kind of a bright spotlight. And that was kind of the main reference image for the way that we wanted to make the tractor beam look on Ned when the ship doors open and the light comes down. And so those are all very specific references and very specific kind of intention. A lot of that is haze as well, kind of hazing the interiors, having a lot of like kind of warm, practicals, and then kind of a lot of color contrast is all feels very Spielberg to me. So, I would say this was, and I love the way that this came out. Like, I love the way that it ended up looking and how it fit with the story, but it was definitely different than my kind of just go-to normal style. So that has to do with Ryan being very specific about what he wanted to accomplish and figuring out the best way to do that. The biggest challenge with this film was just absolutely running out of time. I think when you're shooting at night, you not only do you have a ticking clock, the sun will come up at some point and then the shoot will be over, but there's also kind of a law of diminishing returns with everybody's kind of focus and ability to keep working, because 4 o'clock in the morning for people who don't normally stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning, knowing you've got another 3 hours to go is pretty rough. And so I would say just trying to stay alert, especially kind of in the back quarter of the evening when it's like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and everybody really just wants to go to bed. I think that was probably the biggest challenge for me, just staying alert and into it and interested and making sure that we're getting everything that we need when everybody's really tired. And when, both nights we had pretty significant delays. And so everybody shows up to set, sun's starting to go down, everybody's like, all right, here we go, we're gonna get going. And then it's like 4 hours until we really get going. I think that was mentally challenging as well. So I think the challenges on this film were mostly mental. It was really just trying to stay sharp and focused and kind of ready to go when we were dealing with a lot of kind of technical issues and stuff that was pushing our timing back. And so the bulk of the most important parts of the shoot were happening when people were the most tired. And so I think that was the hardest part. But that's when, I go back to, like, if everybody can just remember, like, we're here to have fun and this is a lot of fun. There was still, I think it was, a lot of joke telling, a lot of horsing around, and a lot of, fortunately Josh's performance was hilarious. And so it made all of us kind of keep a very light touch on the evening. It was really funny and really fun. And so I think that's the way to kind of power through those scenarios. Thanks for watching. Those were some really great questions. Appreciate you guys taking the time to ask them. Hopefully those answers help you as you kind of think through, your next projects and preparing to DP projects upcoming. So thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you guys later.
FreshBooks makes things simple, but their specialty is to make your life easier when it comes to invoicing, getting paid, and tracking expenses. If you are doing any freelance work or have a business of any kind on the side or full-time, you need to know about FreshBooks. It's the online tool and the absolute easiest way to get all your accounting done super fast. Everyone dreads stuff like sending invoices and getting your numbers straight, but that's where FreshBooks will make it really simple. Your clients can pay you online, your expenses are automatically tracked as you spend, and all the little details about cash flow are in one place so you always know where you stand. It'll even let you see the full history of any invoice, so you'll be able to see if your client has looked at the invoice or not. So head over to freshbooks.com/FilmRiot and don't forget to enter FilmRiot in the How Did You Hear About Us section. So that's it for today. Big thank you to Ryan Booth. You can find him on Twitter right here. And of course, you can find all the other filmmakers' Twitters and other social networkings in the notes below. But that's it. We'll see you guys next week.